Homecoming. The tires crunched over the frozen gravel as Alexei's car rolled to a stop. The forest loomed around the minimalist house like a wall of shadows, silent, watching. A low fog crept between the trunks, licking at the base of the house like it hungered for secrets. Alexei sat motionless in the driver's seat, staring at the front door. His hands rested on the wheel, knuckles pale. He wasn't supposed to be back until tomorrow. A cancelled meeting, a sudden impulse. He hadn't called ahead. Something inside him, cold and whispering, told him not to. He stepped out into the chill. His breath curled into the night like smoke. The porch light flickered once and held steady. From inside, barely audible at first, came a sound. A moan. He froze. Then came another, soft but unmistakable. He knew that voice. Knew its tone in pleasure, in pain, in lies. Marina. His fingers tensed around the house key. Alexei moved slowly. The familiar creak of the wooden steps under his feet had never sounded louder. As he reached the door, he could hear them clearer now. Breathless gasps, soft laughter. A man's voice murmuring something he couldn't make out. He didn't barge in. That would have been too easy. Instead, he turned the knob silently and stepped into the hallway. The warm air inside greeted him like a lie. The house smelled faintly of jasmine, Marina's favorite candle. He walked past the coat rack, past the kitchen with its immaculate steel counters, and stopped before the guest bedroom. The door was ajar. He could see just enough: bare skin, the tangle of sheets, his brother's familiar silhouette. Marina's back arched toward him, unaware. Their voices, too absorbed in the rhythm of betrayal to notice anything else. Alexei stepped back. He didn't shout. Didn't rage. Didn't make his presence known. Instead, he pulled the guest room door closed with slow, deliberate calm, and twisted the lock from the outside with a soft click. Then he stood there, his breath steady now. Below the surface, something shifted. He walked upstairs, to his private study. The monitors blinked to life with a quiet hum. 4 feeds from inside the house, all in perfect clarity. He found the right camera, the guest room, and watched. They hadn't noticed they were locked in yet. He sat down and waited. A slow smile crept onto his face, hollow and sharp-edged. He reached for the intercom system, fingers brushing against the cold steel of the old lighter his father had left behind. The one that had once illuminated a frightened child hiding in a closet, listening to the screams of his mother. Tonight, it would light something else. But not yet. First, they would squirm. Control. The silence in the house was thick, until it was broken by a sudden thud from downstairs. Alexei didn't flinch. He leaned back in the leather chair, bathed in the dim glow of the monitors. On the screen, Marina now sat upright on the edge of the bed, a sheet clutched to her chest. Igor was pacing, his expression tight with confusion and irritation. He tugged at the doorknob, twisted it hard. Nothing. Another thud. This time louder. Still locked. Alexei tapped a few keys on his laptop. The hallway lights outside the guest room blinked out. Darkness. Only the emergency red glow from the floorboards remained, pulsing like a heartbeat. On screen, Marina was starting to panic. Alexei let out a breath, calm and slow. This house had always been about control. Built with precision. Every detail designed to be sterile, minimal, obedient. It was his sanctuary. And now, it was his crucible. He moved to the control panel on the wall. One button disabled the climate control. The hum of warmth faded. Soon the room downstairs would chill. Bare skin would become gooseflesh. Muscles would tighten. And then, inevitably, the fear would begin to bloom. He returned to his seat and opened another window on the monitor feed, archived footage. Months' worth. He dragged the timeline back to last October. There. A frame stuttered, then loaded. Marina. Alone. Standing in the same guest room, whispering into her phone, laughing. Then she turned, and kissed someone just out of view. But not quite out of view. Alexei froze the frame. Igor. The memory stabbed like ice. So it had been going on far longer than tonight. A year. 2. His hand hovered over the play button, but he didn't press it. He didn't need to watch it again. He had seen enough. Downstairs, the audio feed crackled to life. Marina's voice, faint and trembling. What is this? Why won't it open? She was whispering now. Desperation, not yet panic, but close. He activated the intercom. Hello, Marina. The scream was sharp and immediate. Igor rushed to her, shielding her with his body. Alexei chuckled softly. You're awake now, he continued, his voice calm. Good. I was beginning to think you'd sleep through your own reckoning. Alex, what the hell is this? Igor's voice, rough with bravado. Open the door. Alexei didn't respond. Instead, he played a recording, a whispered phone call between Marina and Igor from 2 months ago. The line crackled through the in-wall speakers downstairs. He's smart, but not smart enough. He always thinks he's in control, but he doesn't see anything coming. Marina's voice. Laughing. Then Igor. Let him keep thinking that. He's too obsessed with order to notice real chaos. The silence afterward was suffocating. Alexei leaned closer to the mic. Still think I don't see? A pause. Then Marina shouted. You're sick. No, Alexei said flatly. I'm awake. For the first time in years. His eyes flicked toward the family photo on the desk. The only one that remained. His mother in the center, bruises hidden under makeup. His father's hand clenched around her shoulder. He was 10 years old in that picture. His smile frozen and false. He stood up, crossing to the cabinet near the window. From the drawer, he took out the old brass lighter. The initials, V.A., still etched in fading metal. Vadim Alexievich. His father's name. He turned it over in his palm, feeling the weight. The past was a ghost. But tonight, it had flesh. Names. Faces. Voices. And it would burn if he willed it. But not yet. Let them wonder. Let them feel it coming. Echoes. The temperature in the guest room had dropped to just under 14 degrees Celsius. Not dangerous. Not yet. But enough for Marina to begin rubbing her arms and for Igor to pace like a caged animal. Sweat on his temples turned cold. Alexei watched them shiver through the monitor, eyes narrowed, not with anger, but calculation. A message popped on the screen. Motion detected at the west perimeter. Alexei checked the exterior feed. Nothing but wind-blown trees. Paranoia? Or anticipation? He minimized the alert and turned his attention back to the audio stream. The silence was thick now, except for Marina's occasional murmurs. Soothing words meant more for herself than for Igor. Then her voice changed. Sharper. Alexei, she said toward the ceiling, as if the house were a god. If this is some kind of sick joke, it's gone far enough. Let us out. Alexei pressed the mic. Far enough? You're just getting started. Igor has nothing to do with this, she snapped. Wrong. He has everything to do with this, Alexei replied, his tone unflinching. He's the mirror I've spent my whole life avoiding. On the screen, Marina stiffened. She was listening now. Really listening. Do you remember, Marina, Alexei continued, when I told you about the night I locked myself in the wardrobe as a boy? When my father came home drunk. When my mother tried to keep him quiet. No response. She screamed once. Then she stopped. I thought she was dead. I didn't come out for hours. Marina slowly sat down again, wrapping the sheet tighter around her. Igor remained standing, jaw tight, but his bravado was fading. I made a promise to myself that night, Alexei said, his voice lowering. I would never be the victim. Never again. He stood, stepped away from the desk, and walked down the hallway toward the staircase. Each step creaked under his weight like a countdown. At the bottom, he paused, staring at the locked guest room door. From behind it, whispers leaked through, Igor trying to calm Marina, or maybe himself. The house was too quiet. Too alive. Alexei placed his hand on the doorknob, almost reverently. Then turned and walked away. He didn't need to be physically close to them. That was the old reflex, the need to witness. But he wasn't his father. And this wasn't rage. This was theater. He returned upstairs and opened another archived video. This time, the living room, 1 month ago. Marina on the couch, talking to someone on the phone. Her voice was low but clear. He's not dangerous. He's just obsessive. I know how to trigger him. She paused, laughed. If he snaps, let him. That'll make things easier for me in court. Alexei sat back, absorbing her words like venom through the skin. So that was the endgame. Not just betrayal. Not just pleasure. She had been engineering his collapse. Creating the monster she wanted the world to see. A madman. Unfit. Unstable. She had always known where to press. A thought surfaced, slow and awful. Maybe she had never loved him. Maybe she had only ever needed him. His order. His devotion. His money. His silence. Alexei opened the drawer again and took out the leather case, his mother's. Inside, faded documents, hospital records, a police report that went nowhere. And a letter. Handwritten. Torn at the corner. He hadn't opened it in years. He read the words aloud. If you're reading this, it means you're old enough now to understand. I wanted to leave. I tried. But he found me every time. You were the only reason I stayed. I'm sorry, my little son. He folded the paper gently and set it beside the lighter. Downstairs, the speakers crackled again. Igor's voice this time, desperate. Alexei, listen. Whatever's happening, I swear, this wasn't about hurting you. I was weak, okay? But this is sick. You're not your father. Silence. Then Marina, if you do this, you'll destroy your life, not ours. Alexei tilted his head. Interesting phrasing. She wasn't pleading. She was negotiating. She thought this was about consequences. About control. But it wasn't. Not anymore. It was about truth. He activated the overhead speaker. Marina. Igor. I want you both to know something. A pause. Long enough to pull their focus. This house has no smoke detectors. Silence. Then Igor's voice, sharp with fear. What are you saying? I'm saying, Alexei replied softly, the world you built inside my walls is ending. You just haven't realized it yet. He ended the transmission. No more words. Only action remained. He stood, walked to the garage, and lifted the tarp off the red plastic fuel container. He didn't carry it upstairs yet. He just set it by the front door. And went back to the monitors, where 2 people in a locked room stared at shadows, waiting for something they couldn't yet name. Ashes of intention. Marina's screams had stopped. Not because the fear had passed, but because the silence had become more terrifying. On the screen, she was curled in the corner of the guest room, wrapped in a sheet like a dying queen stripped of her crown. Igor stood by the door, fists clenched, whispering to himself. Maybe a prayer. Maybe regret. Alexei sipped cold tea from the edge of his desk, staring at them as though they were strangers in a foreign film. He no longer needed to shout or threaten. The house was doing it for him. The emptiness. The cold. The whisper of the intercom waking them in the dark. He pressed a key. A low recording began playing through the speakers downstairs, his mother's humming. He had digitized it from an old cassette, the last remnant of her voice. A lullaby she used to sing when his father was out. A sound of safety turned spectral now, disembodied, echoing down the hall. He watched Marina jerk to her feet. Her eyes searched for the source of the sound, wide with confusion. Igor recoiled like the walls were moving. Alexei spoke quietly into the mic. Did you know she died alone in a hospital room with a broken pelvis and a ruptured spleen? No visitors. No flowers. I wasn't there. I was giving a keynote lecture in Geneva. He paused. They called it an accident. She fell. But I knew better. I knew what falling under my father's rule meant. From the screen, Marina looked up, shaken. She wasn't crying now. She was calculating. You're not your father, she said into the empty room. You're smarter. You know how this ends. Alexei leaned closer. Do I? You destroy us, you lose everything. Your career. Your name. This house becomes a crime scene. You'll never be free of it. He said nothing. The silence stretched like a wire. I read your therapy notes, she continued. The ones you printed and hid in the drawer. You're not a monster, Alex. You're a boy with a wound that never healed. And I was wrong to take advantage of that. Alexei blinked slowly. The mention of his private writings hit deeper than he expected. The file had been buried. Unlabeled. She must have dug for it. Of course she did. He reached toward the console and opened a folder titled Evidence. Within it, security footage, text logs, and financial transactions. But also, an email. One he'd drafted weeks ago. Subject, to whom it may concern, internal audit inquiry. It accused Igor of embezzlement from their late mother's trust fund. Subtle theft over years. Manipulating records. Masking guilt behind charm. Alexei had never sent it. He had hoped foolishly that family could still be family. But not now. He hit send. Somewhere, a forensic accountant was about to receive enough data to set off legal fires that would burn longer than gasoline ever could. Still, this wasn't enough. Not yet. The truth wasn't complete. He switched on the mic. Igor, he said calmly. When were you going to tell me you used our mother's name to take out loans after her death? A beat of stillness. What? I have the bank's report. You forged her signature. The money was never paid back. You left her to rot in credit hell just so you could fund your startup fantasy. Igor's jaw dropped. That's not true. I covered the debt, Alexei cut him off. Quietly. Thought I was protecting her memory. But I was protecting you. Then why do this? Igor shouted. If you're better than him, better than Dad, why are you torturing us like this? Alexei stood slowly. The lighter in his hand. Heavy with memory. I'm not torturing you, he said. I'm unmaking you. Then he turned off the audio. Silence again. Not the passive kind, but the loaded, electric hush before something irreversible. He walked to the front door. Picked up the gas canister. Walked back, step by step, through the hall. The house seemed to breathe with him, its creaks and sighs aligning with his movement. He splashed the first trail of fuel across the entryway. Then the living room. Then toward the base of the stairs. The smell was immediate. Thick. Chemical. Cleansing. He reached the fireplace. Paused. And struck the lighter. Flame bloomed in his hand. He walked to the hearth. Knees bent. Eyes flickering in the reflection of glass and flame. But instead of dropping the lighter, he opened the iron grate and lit the wood inside. The fire caught slowly. Cautiously. He stood and watched it grow, until the orange washed over his face like absolution. Upstairs, the monitors flickered. In the guest room, Marina had gone still. Igor sat beside her now. No fighting. No pleading. Just quiet. Almost like prayer. Alexei took one final look. And then he walked out the front door. What remains? The forest swallowed him. Branches reached overhead like arms, shadowed and skeletal. Alexei walked slowly, methodically, the frost crunching beneath his boots. Behind him, the house stood quiet against the black sky, a dim orange glow flickering faintly in the windows, not from chaos, but from the controlled burn in the hearth. He had not burned them. He had not saved them. He had simply left. Each step away from the house felt unreal. He didn't know where he was going, just that it had to be away. No destination. Just motion. The lighter remained in his coat pocket, warm from the fire, warmer still from the history it carried. It felt heavier now, not because of what it had been used for, but because of what it hadn't. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, his breath felt steady, clean. But his mind. Not quiet. Marina's voice echoed. You're a boy with a wound that never healed. Maybe. But he had finally stopped picking at the scab. Up ahead, his car waited where he left it by the edge of the trees. The keys were cold in his hand. He opened the door, slid in, and sat in silence. He didn't start the engine. Instead, he opened the glove compartment and pulled out an old photo, creased at the corners, its colors fading. His mother, standing in a summer dress, sunlight in her hair. No bruises. No makeup hiding pain. Just her, holding a dandelion, smiling at him. He must have been 7 or 8. Alexei pressed the photo to his forehead. Then set it carefully on the passenger seat. Behind him, the house remained still. There had been a choice. And he had made it. But the cost of restraint wasn't peace, it was a question mark. One that now hovered in the cold air around him like a ghost. He had exposed them. Left them to confront each other, alone. Marina and Igor, two parasites feeding off the same host until the host cut the cord. But what would they do now? Turn on each other? Run to the police? Make it a performance? Or would they understand? He doubted that last one. Still, he hadn't killed them. And that fact alone felt both righteous and hollow. He started the car. Headlights carved through the trees, illuminating nothing but empty space. He reversed, then drove, slowly at first, then faster, until the house disappeared behind him, swallowed by the woods and smoke and memory. A few kilometers down the road, a roadside diner emerged from the trees like a dream. Closed. Dark. But a neon open sign blinked faintly in the window. He pulled in anyway. Sat there. Then it happened. His phone lit up on the dashboard. One message. From unknown. You think it's over? No name. No punctuation. Just that question. Alexei stared at it for a long time. Then, with a strange calm, he deleted it. No reply. He tossed the phone into the passenger footwell, reached for the lighter, and flicked it once. Flame danced for a heartbeat before vanishing into dark. The story hadn't ended. Not for Marina. Not for Igor. And maybe not for him. But it had changed. He was no longer the man waiting in the dark for betrayal to find him. He was the one who walked away, lighter in pocket, house intact, demons still breathing but no longer whispering orders in his ear. And that, for now, was enough. The engine hummed low. Then the car disappeared into the woods, leaving behind only tire tracks, ash in a fireplace, and a silence that could mean anything.